Okay, so this is going to be our first of many recordings on my YouTube channel. Now, I'm just starting out. I don't care if you subscribe. I don't care if you don't. You know, that's just strictly up to you. My YouTube channel is meant to be more informative, kind of a funny type, hopefully funny type informative as I can try to get. As you can see by my desktop background here, it's also June the 9th, 2019, and it is Gay Pride Month. And so I'm celebrating Gay Pride Month as well. We've got a heck of a lot of awesome individuals out there. And I just want to support everybody where I can. Now, this channel, I'm going to start it off by doing a little segment called Have You Ever Wondered? Now, what this segment is going to include is I'm going to be looking for different websites, different articles, a lot of different things to try to do not only just an informative, but also hopefully a funny type of an informative answer to a lot of the questions that many of you all have asked Google. Have you ever wondered? I've always wondered how um, this is done, or this is made, or I've always wondered how this artist got his inspiration, or I've always wondered how drugs have an effect on the body. I've always wondered how um, the internet works. I've always wondered how computers work, you know, just of various different things. And I want to try to cover um, a lot of different areas. I've got a lot of different areas of expertise, and I want to try to cover as much as I can. Um, and of course, there's going to be a bunch or a ton of videos, you know. One video per topic basically is what it's going to consist of, unless it's a really extremely easy topic and everything else. Then there may be more than one. Now, parents, beware. This is not, and I repeat, not a kid friendly channel. So, if you're looking up information and stuff like that, there is a potential that there may be cussing, there may be adult content on this channel. No nudity. Don't get me wrong on that. There's never going to be any nudity on this channel because that's going to go against YouTube policy. I mean, I'm always going to be adhered to YouTube's policy. But there will be adult things that will happen on the channel. So, parents, just be aware of that. Now, without further ado, this very first instance that I'm going to do, and it's something that I don't know what made me think about this. It was one of the very first things that just popped in my mind. You know, I've got a really good friend of mine, for quite a few years. And he was real bad onto the drug scene. And for the most part, yeah, it has always been a problem with me, but it really wasn't a problem until he started bringing it into my house. And he knew my rules on that. And when he started bringing the drug scene into my house, that's when I had to put a stop to it. And I said, absolutely no more, period. Well, he is now actually in a 1 year treatment program, and he is 8 months down, and he's been doing an absolutely excellent job in it. I am very proud of him. Given that, I started doing a little bit of research on different drug programs and everything there is out there, as far as people that wants to help in that or that wants help in their drug and alcohol addiction. Now, this site that I'm fixing to bring up, it's not meant to be what you would say an absolute. Um, and without knowing the whole complete full story on this organization itself, because at this point I really have no clue of where this organization is even from, because I cannot find any other information out on it except for just this one website. I mean, there's a couple of other websites that they have, that definitely deals with AA meetings and NA meetings and different things like that. But as far as their actual beliefs and everything else, I really haven't been able to find much else. And so it just kind of struck me as kind of odd that an organization that's trying to help somebody, as part of them wanting to help a person, they still have this website in their repertoire. And we're going to look up right here and we're going to see that the beginning of this website is the Recovery Village. recoveryvillage.com. And you're more than welcome. I mean, if you have a problem or if you have an issue with drug or alcohol abuse, please, definitely go to the recoveryvillage.com without everything else. Because like I said, this website right here is fixing to be taken out of context. And I have not, and I repeat, I have not went through that full website yet to verify a lot of this information. But this is just one of those websites where, it's one of those funny type of occasions where the website doesn't match what it's supposed to belong to. And that's what I'm trying to portray on this video and kind of like on this channel itself. So now, we're supposed to be on a website that's talking about people getting rid of their addictions, whether it be alcohol or drug abuse. And I do know for a fact, or actually not for a fact, but just from what I've been told, is that when you are in NA or AA, there's a certain aspect that you got to go through to learn a little bit about the history of alcohol abuse and narcotics abuse. And some of the artists that we're going to be going over today is part of what's in the history that you've got to learn when you're in those programs. Now, I've never been in those programs, so I really can't say, 100% certainty that that's an absolute fact. But this is just something, that have you ever wondered why or how Picasso got his inspiration? Have you ever wondered why or how Picasso made it big time? Well, here's a little bit of a background on a couple of those artists. So, the first one that we're fixing to look at, Vincent van Gogh. Vincent van Gogh. As you all know, and you've heard it in many different movies, the Van Gogh paintings. Van Gogh paintings are worth millions on top of millions on top of millions of dollars. And I'm just going to scroll up just a little bit more so that way you can actually, while I'm talking to you, you can actually read, this article here. Well, Vincent van Gogh definitely was a famous artist, but he never was famous back in the day that he was alive. And unfortunately, that's the way the biggest majority of the artists are. How many artists do you know that is still alive today, where their paintings are worth millions on top of millions on top of millions of dollars? You don't. And that's due to the fact that in an artist world, your work does not become valuable until you die. It wasn't until well after Vincent van Gogh died till his paintings actually started being worth money. But when Vincent van Gogh was still alive, what was he? He was just a normal person, just like you and I, that was hooked on absinthe and that was hooked on digitalis. Absinthe is an hallucinogenic form of alcohol that you can get from certain liquor stores in the area or certain liquor stores within the United States. The original absinthe, and there is a whole thing on the history of absinthe. Oh, and it is absolutely wonderful because I like black licorice, and that's basically what absinthe tastes like. It's black licorice. And there are several different forms of absinthe. Now, the absinthe that was available during Van Gogh's time frame, that's a completely different absinthe than what you would normally get out of a liquor store in this area today. The absinthe that you would have gotten in Vincent van Gogh's time frame had what was called the wormwood in the liquor. It's kind of like tequila with the worm, I guess you'd say in a way, but it was absinthe with the worm. Well, the wormwood was a hallucinogenic worm. And when that worm was under pressure, or when the worm was bottled with the absinthe, that worm would throw out a chemical that he or she had stored in its body. Kind of like how skunks throw out that stinky smell when they feel themselves being pressured. Well, that's kind of how the worm would do. They would throw out this scent, and that scent would penetrate through the bottle. Well, the scent that the wormwood threw out was a hallucinogenic scent. Kind of like if we were to talk about hallucinogenics, let's say most people know what hallucinogen is, especially if we talk about acid and mushrooms and different things like that were done during the baby boomer days in the 70s. Let's talk about Woodstock during the 70s. What does most people think about when we talk about Woodstock? We're talking about hallucinogenic drugs. Well, absinthe is a form of that. Now, the absinthe that you would get here in the States it still has a lot of the same properties. And trust me, I know from experience on this one, it does still have some of the hallucinogenic properties, especially if you buy the $150 to $200 bottle of the absinthe. Yeah. Yeah, the higher amount the bottle is, the better quality it is. And I got the best quality there was in the United States. And needless to say, I was thinking the French fries that I cooked 4 hours later were talking to me. So, so yeah. I know a little bit about the absinthe side of it. The digitalis, that was another hallucinogenic drug that I've never really even heard of it in today's world. Um, I guess really the only way to explain digitalis as a drug, that would be a little bit of a different series. But for the most part, just to make it sweet, short, and simple, it was another hallucinogenic. We'll just put it as that. And so that was Vincent van Gogh's two main drugs of choice. Now, Vincent van Gogh gained his inspiration after he had done got finished taking those drugs. And during the time frame that he was taking those drugs, or directly after he had taken those drugs, that's when he did all of his paintings. It's the same way as us humans now, we may feel all good and fine and everything else, but when we start drinking alcohol or when we start drinking beer, what's one of our first instincts, especially if we want to cook something, especially if we want to grill? And being down here in Texas, we grill every week. It don't matter what the occasion is, we fucking grill. We always have an excuse to grill. Now, and there also comes a point where you got to experiment with your cooking, experiment with what seasonings or the temperature that you grill at. You experiment with all of that. But now, don't lie. You normally only experiment with any of that kind of stuff, especially with your cooking, only when you've been having a couple of beers or a couple of mixed drinks. There you go. Alcohol brings out the creative side in a lot of different people. So with that note, we're going to come on down to the next one that's on the same list. And now watch what I'm saying here. We're still on the same website, therecoveryvillage.com. Now we come to Thomas Kincaid. And now I know a lot of you all are saying Kincaid. That name really, really, really sounds familiar. It really sounds more familiar than Van Gogh. Where do I know the name Thomas Kincaid from? Well, here is where you know the Thomas Kincaid name from. And I'm just going to bring this over here up on the screen. Kincaid Jigsaw Puzzles. Basically, if you've ever done a jigsaw puzzle, the pictures that you're doing that jigsaw puzzle for was done by Thomas Kincaid. As you can see right here, I did a search on Google for Kincaid Jigsaw Puzzles. How many results showed up? about 1,210,000 results for Thomas Kincaid puzzles. So now, have you ever wondered why the name Thomas Kincaid sounds familiar? Well, this is why. Because he was the designer of, I would say, 90% of the jigsaw puzzles that you have ever ran across. And how did he get his inspiration? Since this video here is dealing with kind of like inspirations and stuff like that. Um, and give me just a second here. I'm just going to kind of let you read that article for just a minute. Say I type a message to somebody else real quick. All right, well, part of Thomas's Kincaid type thing was alcoholism. Yeah, he did believe in alcohol. He loved to drink. He was a big time drinker. He was definitely one that you could call an alcoholic. And he also took Valium on top of that. Um, excuse me for just a minute here. Sorry about that pause, but my zebras were thinking that their stripes were running away from them, and so I had to get them corrected on that one. But alcoholism in itself tends to act as a depressant. And, you know, as well as I do, somebody on alcohol, you know, depending on what kind of alcohol they're on, they can go one of two ways. Either they just want to pass the freak out, or they want to fight anything that comes in their way. Alcohol with me, alcohol acts as a stimulant, so I always want to keep going. I want to do something busy. I want to do something constructive. As long as I'm doing something busy work or something constructive, I'm perfectly fine on alcohol. Now, when you start mixing in Valium with the alcohol, that's when things start turning a little bit hairy. And when I mean hairy, I mean things could go sour very, very quickly. Um, Valium is used to treat a lot of different mental disorders. And it's mental disorders that a lot of people really should not have even been diagnosed with in the first place. One of which, back in the early 1950s, 1960s, when some people were just now, or were in alcoholism especially, was just now really becoming something that was mainstream. One thing that psychologists wanted to administer was Valium. It's because their belief was, well, you're only drinking as much as you're drinking because you're depressed. And Valium acts as an antidepressant, so if you take a Valium, you're not going to be depressed anymore, so you're not going to drink as much. But, as that became more and more mainstream in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, a lot more people started becoming dependent on the Valium. And still, even with the Valium dependence, and even with all of these other psychologists prescribing Valium for, just about any type of a psychological disorder that you can think of, including narcolepsy and alcoholism. They still prescribe the Valium. And yeah, Thomas Kincaid, he was one of the few individuals that got started on it back a very, very long time ago. And when you're on alcohol and antidepressant such as Valium, something like that normally distorts your field of view. You don't have the same field of view as you normally would if you were sober or clean with all those different things. But Thomas Kincaid is one of the few individuals where when he was on both of those, it actually made him see a more clearer picture. And you've always heard the saying, one drug may work for one person and it doesn't the next. Well, with Mr. Kincaid, he was one of the opposite ones. So Thomas Kincaid, that's where you've heard a lot of his stuff from, is he did a hell of a lot of the jigsaw puzzles. Okay, now move on to the next one. Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol was another one of our great American artists, where his paintings are also worth millions on top of millions of dollars. Now, there's a lot of different types of art eras, as you may say. Um, you have the Expressionism era. You have the Bohemian era. You have a bunch of different eras in painting where 90% of the paintings that came through during that time frame had a certain feel or had a certain look to them. Um, the Baroque era, Expressionism, you know, that's just to name just a few. Um, this guy, this whole complete um, webcast now, we've dealt with nothing but fully painter type artist. This guy falls in a little bit of a different category when it comes to painter type artist. Um, Andy Warhol, I'm trying to think of a nonchalant, really a nonchalant way to say this, and I'm basically just going to say it. Andy Warhol was either gay himself or he wasn't. In either case, he still ranks in the top 5 artists of the world. Period. And that's only because of just a couple of paintings that he did. Now, even if he was not gay, he still was a gay supporter. Period. And when we're talking about a gay supporter, we're talking about a time frame where if you were gay and people knew about it, you'd be dragged down a country road until you died. And there's just no sense in that. And in some of his paintings, he let that be known that he was gay. In my eyes, to each his own. Love has no boundaries. You love who you love. If that person that you love happens to be the same sex, and that's just what it is. Andy Warhol. I know that you've heard that name before. Well, Andy Warhol, have you ever wondered what Andy Warhol is known for? He is known for the classic stamp that was also a stamp, but first a cartoon drawing of Monroe. That's Miss Monroe right there. And this being all up through there, that's Marilyn Monroe. That's his cartoon version of Marilyn Monroe. It's stamped. That stamp was only available over in the UK. Andy Warhol also did several other different graphics as well. Back quite a few years ago, Campbell's Soup, they had an advertisement going on, and this is back in the same day as Marilyn Monroe. They had an advertisement going on their soup cans. Well, Andy Warhol was the artist behind all of those drawings on the Campbell soup cans. And technically, to this day, and we're talking about June 9th, 2019, still today, Andy Warhol's paintings are still the most priceless paintings of any other painter that has ever came out that is gay. Because Andy Warhol made it known that he was gay. And unfortunately, like I said earlier, your paintings, does not bring very much money or anything else until you die. Well, Andy Warhol died February 22nd of 1987. And his paintings did not start making millions of dollars until after he died. And he is the very first openly gay painter. So that makes his work a little bit more valuable in a certain instance. Now, I did a lot of controversy and everything else over Andy Warhol himself. And get back to the original deal. His addiction was albuterol. Albuterol is a drug that I'm not familiar with. I don't think that is available in today's standards, but by doing like a little bit more research on albuterol, it's basically the predecessor to Adderall, which would then lead to methamphetamine. So he was basically on a stimulant. Now, the next artist we have in this series is going to be Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock, to be quite honest with you, I've never even heard of him. So I'm having to do research on this as well. Just kind of see, what's going on, all that kind of BS and all of that. But just by looking at this painting right here, and supposedly it's supposed to allow me to click on it and bring it up, but it's not. Yeah, it's definitely another. That picture right there. I want to bring this picture up full screen. And how can I not bring it up But it's only bringing it up like that. But that's going to be good enough for the example that I've got. Give me just one moment. Now, I'm back. Now, giving that we are in a society at this point that is basically what you would consider a digital age society. Their life rolls around the digital age. Sorry. Oh, hold on. Oh, there you go. I have to get the foam out of my beer after I put salt in it. Um, right now, this painting here, this falls before the digital age. What we would consider as zeros and ones this would be considered as a form of extreme expressional art. Looks just like a bunch of lines and everything else, and huh, honestly, I mean, really honestly, I don't have much for you on this one. You know, the way that he does his art is not stereotypical of much anybody else. His art has, and I've seen several different abstracts by Jackson Pollock, and none of them has ever been as busy as this one is. But it's all been about lines. And the canvas that it's done on. Yes, Mr. Pollock is just like almost every other individual in the United States today. His drug of choice is alcohol, so he drank a lot. He really did. And he had his greatest inspiration when he was drinking. His all of his inspirations has led to his paintings. Not all paintings are made 100% the same. There's a lot of things that you got to think about when it comes to paintings. You know, number one, what are you going to have for your canvas? Because what you have for your canvas or what that paint is going to go on, that sets the standard for the painting itself. Like there's some individuals that loves to have a painting canvas of animal skin. And yeah, you think that's gross and everything else. But it's absolutely true. Seriously. Absolutely true. What do you think it means painting on leather is? What is leather? Huh? What is leather? Leather is animal skin. And when you think of animal skin, who do you think painted the most on animal skin? And I know right now, everybody in the chat is off on the conversation of why in the hell would anybody paint on animal skin? Alright, let's go back in time a little bit here now. Let's hold your horses. Let's go back. Let's go back even before the Western days. Let's go back to the Indians that were here in the U.S. What was their coats made out of? What was their paintings made out of? It was made out of hide. It was made out of animal skin. Was it not? Now I'm that guy that says Indian paintings were made using animal skin. Prove me wrong. I'm that guy holding that sign up on that table now. Prove me wrong. What did Indians do their paintings on? What did Indians make their drums out of? What did Indians make their tents out of? And everything else. It was out of animal hide. It was out of animal skin. So, as far as saying that using animal skin for our enjoyment is not ideal, we've been doing that for well over 300 years. And it's worked fine since. So why stop now? That's something that a lot of people don't know about Jackson Pollock, is that he tended to use animal skin as a mediary. Mark Rothotto, I have no clue about him. I have absolutely nothing to say about him whatsoever. Um, Other than it says here that his drug of choice was alcohol and antidepressants, which we all know don't mix. I don't care for shit who you are. We all know alcohol and antidepressants at the same time don't freaking mix. So pick your poison, and apparently he picked both of them at the same time. But who knows? Alright, well, this is gonna, I think it's gonna be the end of my first installment on this new YouTube channel that I'm trying to get done. Have you ever wondered? Um, I wished I could have had my face cam to be able to do this with as well. But I promise you, next broadcast, yeah, I will. And just remember, look up therecoveryvillage.com. Ah, we'll see you soon. Bye.